Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today is a miserable cold day. It's 4 degrees Celsius or 39 degrees Fahrenheit. It's been raining all morning, so I brought all my succulents into the greenhouse. I didn't want them out in this constant rain or you can get root rot. So here's a look in the greenhouse. So I got the heater running. Just gonna come in here. Oh, it feels better in here. I've got my succulents on the floor down here. Got my crown of thorns up here, my jade cutting up here. Yeah, some other jades over there. So all my kind of succulents are indoors here, out of the rain. Hopefully they're happy. It is kind of cool in here. I can't see the thermometer, but it's moderate, let's say that. The jade that I planted just a couple of days ago is already responding to being planted. It may be the light and warmth in the greenhouse here, but you can see new buds coming out all over it. It's just amazing. Even on here, there's a bud down there. Yeah, so it's responding really well to being planted out here in the warmth and the light. So that's good to see. I had a nice flower on my hibiscus yesterday. That's got to be pruned back now that it's outdoors. Yeah, so I can't do a lot of bonsai work today. It's just not so good out. I don't have to do any watering today, so that's a bonus, I guess. Another bonus is that my cube, my water barrel, is filling up. Let's go have a look at that. Here's a look at my cube. So it's going up all the time. It's up to 800 liters or about, I don't know, 225 or 250 gallons. So that's pretty exciting. So that water, that's the equivalent of 10 water barrels. That'll probably get me through the whole summer if we have a dry summer. So that's good. We had plans to pick up more manure this morning, but maybe if the rain stops this afternoon, I can get out there and get some more. The pre-bonsai garden is coming into leaf nicely, both sides. All right, time to get back inside and stay dry. It's the next day now, and it's a much nicer day today. Yesterday, the rain continued almost till the evening. I did manage to collect almost 1,000 liters of rainwater. So here's the 1,000 liter mark. So I'm just slightly below it. So that's pretty exciting, getting all that water. Something good came out of that cold, rainy day. Today is a fairly cool day out, and tonight there is a chance of frost. It says patches of frost. So I doubt we'll get any in our backyard, but you never know. So I'll try and position the trees under the canopy of some of the full-size trees so they don't get any frost. Today I'm going to be working on my larch forest. It has grown a lot. You can see all the new shoot extensions on it. The needles are large. The trees, you can't see any branches. It's just like a big fluff ball. So today I'll be using several techniques: pruning, defoliation, partial defoliation, getting them back in shape. I've got the larch forest out on the bench, and I'm having a look at the trees, making sure they're healthy, vigorous, a nice dark green color. I don't want to do any pruning to trees that are weak or unhealthy. So everything's looking good with them. You can see the nice strong shoots coming out the top. So I'm ready to begin the pruning. This pruning and pinching will accomplish two things. It'll keep the trees to a correct size so they don't keep getting larger and larger. And it'll also balance the vigor. So I'm going to balance the vigor so the shoots on the top of the tree have equal strength with the shoots on the bottom. So it kind of grows out evenly instead of being more vigorous up top. This is a really good example of a shoot that's really vigorous compared to all the rest of the shoots on the tree. So that needs to be pruned back for sure. These larch trees lose their needles in winter, so they get fall color. It's a nice kind of golden yellow color, and then all the leaves fall off. So I've always wondered, can you defoliate a larch? And I found an article, there was someone from Quebec that said they defoliated their larches, and I thought, well, maybe it's possible. And I was asking Aaron in the Toronto Bonsai Society if he ever defoliates his larches, and he says he does partial defoliation. A branch like this, he prunes out a lot of the needles, getting it down to so there's just a few needles on the shoot, and then it grows again with new growth. And he says the new growth comes in very small and tiny. So he also mentioned that Nick Lentz in his book Growing Bonsai from the Wild has a article on thinning these larches. So I looked at that. He doesn't say a whole lot other than he just kind of thins the shoots out. So it's kind of unknown territory for me, but I'm going to try it. I think it'll help these trees maintain their shape and their style for, into the future. Larches are apically dominant, which means all the strength of the tree goes to the top of the tree, and that's where all the vigor is, and they grow the fastest at the top of the tree. And I've always had a problem with these larches thickening up in the apex. The branches get thick and coarse. It loses that fine structure in the apex, and you start to get a bit of inverse taper near the top of the trees. So I think defoliation, partial defoliation, and pruning will help control this and keep the tops of my trees fairly slim. I'd like to start at the top of the tree and work my way down. So reducing the apex as much as possible, thinning it, partial defoliation, bringing all those branches back in vigor. So that's where I'll begin. I think I may have to thin the shoots out first so I can see what's going on. Right now it's just like a mop head. So I'm going to grab some needles, pull them out. I'm going to start with the lower ones on the branches, the ones facing downward, just pulling them out with my hands. Smell nice. And then maybe I can get underneath and see what the branch structure is doing and make some good pruning decisions. You can see the gap opening up underneath the tree here. Now that I can see the branch structure a little more clearly, I can come in with the scissors and prune back the new shoots, just leaving a little bit. So I'll come underneath, prune the tips off the new shoots. You can also pinch them out if you want, like that. I find it easier with the scissors. It's easier to get in there. I've pruned back the new shoots at the apex, but you can see it still looks like a big bush here. You can't see any of the individual branch structure. So I'm going to do some further needle pulling so I can try and expose the branch structure. So here I go. I'll come in now and just reduce the shoots to a few needles, pulling off most of them. So this will be almost total defoliation at the apex, but not quite. I'll always leave a few green needles at the tip of the branches, and that'll keep sap flowing, keep them healthy and alive. But I will reduce the needle density back to almost nothing. So I'm picking off the older green needles, leaving the bright green new needles of the shoots intact. So I'm basically replacing the foliage in the apex. The older green foliage is being replaced by the new shoots now. So anything a dark green I'm pulling out, and anything a light green I'm leaving. As I'm thinning the apex out, you can begin to see the branch structure in here once again, which is nice. I finished needle plucking the apex here, so you can see the branch structure. You can see most of the dark green foliage has been replaced by the new shoots. The only places I left the green needles is where new shoots hadn't developed yet. So some of the areas here, the branch hadn't developed new shoots on it, so I left the green needles on, the older green needles. So I'm just kind of, you just thin it out till you can see the branch structure, you can get light in there. And how far back you go is, up to you. There is a point where if you go too far back, you might start losing branches, but I think this is just about right. So I'd say this is partial defoliation. This is a good example of an apex that's pruned up versus one that isn't. So quite a difference. So I'll work on this apex next. Taking the tips off. I'm trying to cut between the needles. You may get a slight browning on them, but it'll soon be covered up by new growth, so you won't even see it. That's got the new growth cut back in the apex. So now I'll come in and remove all these lower needles off the branches. You just want to pinch out a little bit at a time. Just work your way around the branches. Just lightly pulling. You see that branch separation starting to open up underneath. I've got the needles pruned from the second apex here, so you can kind of see the defined sort of mushroom shape. So now I'm going to go in and prune out all the older dark needles and see if it reveals the branch structure. I finished plucking out all the needles of my second apex, and you can see it looks quite nice. You can see the individual branch structure. It kind of matches the first one I did. So I'm going to let this recover, see what happens. The branches get a lot more light now, so I should get a lot of back budding in here, and maybe I can reduce the apex back further by pruning later on in the summer. I'll continue to use these techniques, thinning them out as I go down the tree. This branch is under the apex, and keep going down. I've got to make sure the trees aren't interfering with each other, that each tree has its own spot of sunlight, that the branches from each tree aren't overlapping each other. And I've got to keep my conical shape and kind of balance the vigor. So down low, I probably won't be doing a lot of pinching. I may pluck off the needles underneath the branches, but I'm going to keep the vigor down low and reduce the vigor up top. I'll start with this second branch now, pruning back the new growth. Then I'll pluck the needles off underneath. I finished needle plucking my secondary branches here. You can see they kind of match the apex and needle density. Kind of reveals the branch structure too. So that's good. It's nice to be able to see what's going on with your branches instead of just being like a big fluff ball. I'm going to finish working on the main tree, get that all pruned and pinched up, and we'll have a look at it. This is a fairly time-consuming operation. It's, you can't just rush it. It may take a day or two to finish the forest. So I'll do what I can today, but there may be a part 2 to this video series. As I'm working away on the trees, I'm starting to open up the space between each tree to let light down into the interior of the forest, which is really important. Otherwise you lose all those branches on the interior. They just get shaded out. I finished working on the main tree. You can see it's very light at top and it kind of gets denser as you go down to the lower branches. So yeah, I think it's looking pretty good. At least you can see the structure of it. It's not just a big kind of shaggy bush like the other trees. So yeah, and it's getting light down in between the trees here, which is really important. You can see I've lost some branches in there already just from them being shaded out, but that's also natural in a forest for that to happen. Yeah, so I've still got a little bit of work to do on some of these branches, but we have a chance of frost coming tonight. I'll get as many trees as I can in the greenhouse out of the frost. I'll fill the floor, all the tables, and the rest of the trees I'll put underneath the trees in the yard here. So if there is a chance of frost, they'll be protected underneath the canopy. I'll come back tomorrow for part 2, where I'll finish up all the trees in the forest, getting them all pinched and pruned and looking good, ready to grow once again. The sun is setting and I filled the greenhouse with tropical trees. Let's go have a look at it. It's as full as I can get it. So there it is. I've got the heater running on the lower shelf there. So it's good and full in here. I just kind of crammed everything in I could. So everything in here will be fine because it'll have the heat on. It's protected from the frost. It's going down to 2 degrees above freezing tonight, so well, it's pretty borderline, but it'll be nice in the greenhouse. So I'll close the door now, say goodnight to the trees like that. I do still have a lot of tropicals out here, and it would be nice to just be able to take them off the table here and place them underneath the table, and they would be fine from the frost. However, the rabbits would probably go to work. They'd say, hey, new bonsai, let's go prune them. So I'm not going to do that. That's too risky. I think that's even more risky than the frost. So what I'm going to do, I've got this large Manitoba maple over here. So I'm going to set up some tables underneath that, and the tree should protect them from the frost. Usually you have a frost-free zone underneath a large tree. So that's what I'll do. I've got my benches cleared of tropicals, and I've placed them under the shade of my Manitoba maple. So I set up 2 kind of low tables down here, and I've got all the rest of my tropicals on these 2 tables, well protected underneath the canopy of the Manitoba maple. I've got to do one more thing today, and that's water all my trees. We had a sunny day and it was fairly dry out, so everything needs water. So that's what I'll be up to. The backyard is looking really nice now. All the ferns have come out. It's all greening up, looking really lush. Beautiful time of the night. So that's it. I got everything watered. The benches are all dripping. That's all for part 1 of this series. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.